Welcome to this online lesson of media with me, Mr. Roberts. In this episode we're going to look at some of the formal elements of media: audience, genre, communication, representation, narrative and stars. An audience is basically the people who encounter or experience a piece of work. It's usually defined by elements such as the audience's age, their gender, race or culture. Incidentally, this man is a member of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. It's important to understand your audience in order to make sure that you appeal to the people that you think would like your idea. And sometimes the subjects in the piece of media directly reflect the audience itself. Genre is the types or categories your work comes under. So there are so many different types of genre, including horror, comedy, drama, romance, crime and fantasy. You also get some other variations of these, such as a rom-com for romantic comedy, or a rom-com sci-fi, or perhaps a rom-com sci-fi drama hall fan, which makes no sense at all. Communication is a huge and fascinating subject, but in essence it's about sending and receiving messages, whether that's verbal or non-verbal. Symbolism is a key part of the communication. The 1989 film The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover used a great deal of colour symbolism to communicate to its audience. In one scene, Georgina, played by Helen Mirren, is playing hard to get, and her purity is shown here by the white environment. In contrast to this, when she moves into the hallway and she gives in to temptation, the environment is red to suggest sexuality and danger, and when she moves into the kitchen, it's green to suggest health and virility. Similar to this is the narrative. A narrative is the telling of a story, often from a specific viewpoint. Humans are great storytellers, and the media uses narratives to deliver the message that it wants to give. But sometimes the narrative is different from the story. For example, this image from The Independent on the 7th of April 1990 shows a protester being taken away by policemen, apparently arguing with a well-dressed woman. The media had used the image to illustrate an unrest between the classes in British society. But in actual fact, the guy was trying to help his girlfriend, just out of shot, who is being allegedly assaulted by police officers. The policeman was trying to stop him from getting involved, and the office worker was talking to the man and asking him to calm down. The Independent printed a retraction in a later issue. Representation is how we portray someone or something. For example, when I was putting this lesson together, I had to decide how I would represent myself. I could have opted for very clever looking graphs to represent myself as a smart guy, but because my audience is fairly young, I decided to let myself get carried away. We could also look at representation in the context of smoking. We see a pipe smoker and we think this is a very well educated, probably well off, civilized kind of person. When we see someone smoking a fag, perhaps we have a different opinion. The media also uses objects to represent things. In action films, we often see that the hero's weapon is a representation of his manhood or his sexual prowess. For example, Brody's rod in Jaws, Jean-Claude Van Damme's snake, Planet Terror, Conan the Barbarian, Bonnie and Clyde, Machete, and of course our favourite, James Bond. But we could say that sometimes the representation betrays the trust of the audience. Case in point is this guy. For decades he was represented as a charity superhero, meeting royalty, celebrities, clergy, popes and helmet models. But as we have recently found out, this was not the truth. Unfortunately, this wasn't even the first time. Stars are the celebrities that are used within a media production. They're often typecast into roles which best suit them. For example, Dwayne Johnson. The former wrestler is perfectly at home in the action movies, but was also cast as the Tooth Fairy in one movie for comedic effect. And sometimes the attachment of a star to a media product can produce the appeal of it. For example, Simon Cowell rejoining the judges of Britain's Got Talent reignited its popularity, but sometimes attaching an ill-considered star to a project doesn't always end well. This concludes today's lesson. Please feel free to comment and ask any questions at all, and I hope to see you in class.